This is AJ Wachtel. Welcome to my podcast, Wachtelligence, where I discuss with my guests the past, present, and future of the local and national music scene with a focus on Boston and New England. Today's episode, Give Chance a Piece, is about the legendary life and career of Chance Langton, one of the funniest men alive today, and about my longtime friendship with him. We'll tell stories, we'll talk about the differences in the comedy club scene for the past 4 decades. Chance is a nationally known comedian, musician, actor, and political and social satirist who's sort of like Lenny Bruce meets George Carlin meets the Smothers Brothers. And since the 1980s, when he started out doing stand-up, sitting on a stool with his acoustic guitar at Ding Ho, Boston's famous comedy club, Langton has appeared in many movies and on TV and has humorously entertained audiences and made them think. Hey, Chance, welcome to Wachtelligence.
Good to see you, AJ. It's a beautiful name, Wachtelligence. I like that.
Hey, well, I wanted to ask you before we get into talking, the title, I asked you what you wanted to name this segment, and you said, give Chance a Piece. Now, I know that's a play on words on Lennon's Give Peace a Chance, but, tell me the story really quickly, the story on how you came to that, and has anybody ever in your audiences been a little bit annoyed that you played on Lennon's famous words?
Nobody ever annoyed, although Yoko Ono tried to shoot me. But that didn't happen. No, what's funny? The Chance thing is the God's truth. It's really weird. I had a comedy musical duo way back, and so we're playing. And every night at the end of the show, I used a different name. So I would say, my name is Joe. My name is Jim. I always, and then, of course, under the influence of reefer, one night I said, my name is Chance. I go, wow, that's the name I want, That's how that happened, Names can be strange, that's what I'm saying. You probably know this, that Meghan Markle and Prince Harry have wonderful news. They're expecting their second child. Their son, Archie, will have a sister, Jughead.
Oh, man, I'm going to get calls from the embassy now, huh? Hey, let's talk a little bit about your personal history. You picked up your guitar at, the age 11, correct?
I started playing at 11 years old.
Who were you into, and how did that come about?
What happened? I was, like I said, I think I was in the 5th grade, and a friend of mine was on stage playing the guitar, and he was really good, and that was it. It just jazzed me so much. I wanted to be a guitar player, but at that point, I can't say anybody influenced me, but I would say that the Beatles, no question, blew me away. 1963, I was, again, I think I was in the 5th grade, maybe the 6th grade, I don't know. And the Beatles performed at Boston Garden.
Maybe both.
Yep. What, you saw it too? in those days.
No, I said maybe both grades.
Yeah, that's interesting because it's true. The school bully broke my leg in 2 places. First in the hallway, then in the gym.
Hey, that's the thing. You've always mixed comedy with music. Your act has always been a mix of satirical observations, humor, original songs, and absurd participation bits with the audience. Care to comment?
Yeah. All those things meshed together at a certain point. I started out doing more musical stuff. And then I was, I loved comedy growing up. So I saw all the greats for that matter.
You were really influenced by Rodney Dangerfield. Who else were you influenced by?
I'm influenced by Rodney Dangerfield, and you probably know. I ended up opening for him in concert halls. So I was playing in Providence. I remember one gig. We're in the Midwest. I opened up for him in Columbus, Ohio. And he was a blast, He's very quiet off stage, just almost like the complete opposite,
Right.
But I would say that in Johnny Carson, I used to run home every day when I was in elementary school. He had a show called Who Do You Trust? Who Do You Trust? It was a game show, and Ed McMahon was his sidekick, and I was dying every time. He was so freaking funny. And at the Ding Ho, I was performing a lot with Stephen Wright, and I just think he's kind of a genius, what he comes up with. So I would say he jazzed me, gave me a little element, I would say, but I put those three together, but plus my own self, and that's how that all came together.
Speaking of Rodney, I saw Rodney in the 80s in the Capitol Theater in Passaic, New Jersey, and some young woman was heckling him on stage. Oh. And he all of a sudden, he's talking to her, and he goes, "You remind me of a whore I knew in Peoria," right? And then she keeps talking to him and heckling him, and he keeps talking to him. 10 seconds later, he goes, "Oh, you are a whore from Peoria," and the place went berserk. Oh. How do you deal with hecklers?
So just go with the flow, that's what I'm saying. Like one night I said, out of the blue, I said, I didn't come here to perform tonight. I came to sell some acid. What did I say? And a heckler said, "How much you got?" And I said, "I've got enough to make you look handsome."
And I've always thought you're like I said before, Lenny Bruce meets George Carlin meets the Smothers Brothers. Who else does what you do today or even back then?
I don't think anybody is. There are musical guitar players and even piano players. They're very good, but I think I'm a little bit different in my background where I performed. Really gave me a little bit of an edge, like the Comedy Store in Los Angeles was one of my favorite places. And, that was incredible. Playing there you saw everybody, so it was really
Hey,
cool.
Can you play a few measures of a new song for us right now?
Sure, one moment.
All right.
Here we go.
A Private Audience by the legendary Chance Langton.
Here's a song I think everybody can relate to. It's Why Do People Suck? It's not a very long one, but I want to sing it in Polish. Suck people do why? Polish guy flipping the bird. There you go.
That's funny. Tell me about, audience participation. Part of your gig is, when you get these people in your audience to do crazy stuff. Where did that come from? And give me an example or two.
Well, I love the Three Stooges. And maybe if you're probably familiar with, to me, it was the funniest bit when they sang, "Yay, baby."
Of course.
So I used to sing that, and then I decided to have everybody come in and sing with me, and I went easy, I'll say QA, you say QA, and they repeated after me, and then I sang it in Chinese, and they sang in Chinese, everybody in the audience, so that was totally off the wall.
Nice to be in Boston. I have been driving all around the country, and I love traveling by car because I get to absorb more of the culture, and I find it interesting that people in different regions have their own favorite sayings. You go down south, it's like, "You all come back now." You go out west, "Hey man, it's like awesome." Well, I'm from Boston, New England. My favorite saying is, "Shut up." It's not exactly hostile. I could say, "Shut up!" I know people are going to get mad. But if I say, "Shut up," I'm cool.
I've seen you perform, and people go nuts over your "shut up," your trademark "shut up." Where did that come from? And give me, what's the craziest shut up situation you've ever encountered or been in?
Yeah. Well, I went for a job interview. This jerk asked me if I had schizophrenia. He said yes and no. He said, "What do you mean?" "What do I mean?" "Shut up." Something like that. So one day I was playing in the field with my kid, And the stranger said, "Your daughter dances like a pretty ballerina." And I said, "Shut up. That's my son." So things like that, I shut up. But this is something actually, this is right up the par. I tried to rob a bank, but they wouldn't let me. I wasn't wearing a mask. So I went home, put a Frankenstein mask on. I got back to the bank, and I said to the teller, "Trick or treat." And she said, "Shut up."
Oh man! Hey, you're a funny guy, and I love you for that. But your renditions of Cat Stevens on acid, Bob Dylan singing "Happy Birthday," and Elvis singing a Dylan song are just funny as heck. Where does this come from? The recessive Langton gene pool?
Let me tell you, you just go with the flow. Things come off the top of your head, and you're thinking ahead of time. You're kind of psyched up, and the crowd is jacked. That sort of thing. A lot of this stuff happened on stage spontaneously. So like that Elvis singing "Lay Lady Lay" was, that came out of my head. I used to do a bit, Bob Dylan singing an Elvis song and Elvis singing a Bob Dylan song. So like Bob Dylan was "Return, Descender, I won't come back." Then Elvis comes in, "Lady, come on, baby, get across my bed."
Oh man! Hey, let's talk a little bit about the professional stories. The Boston 1980s comedy scene. You had Steve Sweeney, Jay Leno, the Ding Ho was there. All the eyes on the world were really on Boston. What's different now?
I would say this, that we laid a real heavy-duty platform. And a lot of people came to the shows and established things. There was a comedy boom all around America.
Right.
At that point, like 79, 80. And so right now, there's a lot of clubs that are great and there's some that aren't so great, but there are a lot of them, and all around the suburbs in New Hampshire and Maine. And here's the thing with me, AJ, I got to be in just the right show, because I can't stand generic guys, or worst of all, there's thieves. I don't mean to be negative, but it sucks, And then if this guy's F-bombing left and right, that stuff doesn't work for me, So I would say this, that it's going, and everything is fine, I think.
Well, part of the problem that I see about the whole entertainment industry today in general is that in Boston, there's a lot of restaurants. There aren't a lot of new clubs that comedians or musicians can play at. And this is pre-pandemic. A lot of the restaurants at 9 o'clock to get another crowd, they push the tables away after dinner, and there'd be no PA, no stage, and no pay. And that's a lot going on about that all over the world today.
Yeah, let me tell you, I think the one club that's still cooking, I don't even know if it's cooking, I haven't been there in a while, Nick's Comedy Stop is still going in the theater district. And I played there for a number of years. I had a blast. The people were nice and all, but I'm trying to think if there's any other club in Boston. I can't think of one. In Somerville, they have the Comedy Studio, which is an interesting club, but I can't recall anything else beyond that. A lot of the other stuff is in the suburbs.
Hey, Chance, fact or fiction? Did you actually perform 8 shows in one night by hopping between downtown Boston clubs?
It was unreal. People. Well, here's the weird part. I just mentioned Nick's Comedy Stop is on Warrington Street. Okay, so they're doing 3 shows, but up the street was the Comedy Connection. And they were doing 3 shows. So everybody was going back and forth. Right there was 6 shows.
Right.
Then there was Stitches, which was a little bit of a hike. And there were another 2 shows there, so that was 8. You had to have somebody driving you. You couldn't drive. There was like not a chauffeur. That would have been great. But You know, that was really true. The problem with that was, can you remember the stuff you did or didn't do? You know, it's kind of a crazy mixed bag like that. They call me Mr. Langton, but you can call me Chance. I'm gonna play a rocker, I don't want you to dance. My music don't mean nothing, my lyrics to try it. Guess it doesn't matter if the money's alright. I said, hey you, riding low, sing that garbage rock and roll. I said, hey you, riding low, sing that garbage rock and roll.
Hey, let's talk about your TV and movie appearances. I know in the movies, you appeared with Adam Sandler in the animated 8 Crazy Nights in, was that 2008, as Mr. Thompson. Did you ever meet Sandler?
Adam and I have become, I would say, friends, Yeah, we hung out, when I did the audition. His music producer was a very good friend of mine. And the last time I saw him, he did a show, believe it or not, it was at the Agana Center at BU. He was filming a Netflix special,
Right.
So I went there and I was hanging out. Then I saw him at the Xfinity Center and hanging out, So he was there way before the pandemic. I think it was 2 summers ago, not last summer, but the summer before. And I got a buzz in that way because I played at the Xfinity Center. I opened for Styx. Back then they called it the Great Woods. And that was a blast. The crowd was jacked. The sound was good. And every time you have the sound, it's great. It totally gives you an extra jolt of confidence. It's really cool.
So who's Mr. Thompson in the film?
Well, what happened was, it was the film was about this old guy named Whitey who was, everybody couldn't stand the guy and they weren't nice to him, and this and that. And then I sang. It was very strange, or strange or not strange. On the track was Adam Sandler, Lainey Kazan, do you remember her from
Yes.
Broadway? Alison Krauss was on the track, and myself. So my lines were, once when we were playing Sunday football, oh boy, once we were playing, a fuzzy screen was all that we could see. Whitey came over with a hammer and spent the day on top of his TV. When the lightning struck him, he gave a weird yell, loud, and he just turned up the volume and we ignored the burning smell. We were all right in hell.
Hey, you were also in Boston Psychiatric as patient Chance T. O'Brien, Home Party 2 as Professor Von O. And you were in Complex World too, right?
I was in Complex World. That was a really cool movie. It still has kind of a cult following. I saw it a few weeks ago on a site in LA that was pretty hip, That was really cool.
And on TV, I know, because I've seen it, you've appeared as the Improv, Evening at the Improv, Comedy Strip Live, Into the Night with Rick Dees. Am I forgetting any place on TV?
Well, I should say this. I've been on all the networks, ABC, NBC, The Dead Sea. It's really been a cool but all the stuff. Even at the Improv, Comedy on the Road, it Stitches, it was good. There's been so many of them, I'm just kind of losing track right now. But even at the Improv was a blast, and Comic Strip Live was cool.
But my favorite story is you had a tryout for Kramer on Seinfeld. How'd that happen? And did you ever meet Jerry?
I met Jerry. I'll tell you what. Here's what happened. I went to this. It was a comedy convention. It was in Las Vegas or Reno or something. And I went there, and everybody was there, all these casting directors, and I hit the ball out of the park. And then the next week, I was auditioning for Kramer. And it's funny, it was the casting director of NBC, and I didn't, my acting chops, I can't say are really great. They could be if I had a little bit of coaching. But I went in there, and, and she said to me, "Where's the shut up guy?" So, so she saw me. Believe it or not, I don't know if I see this, but she thought I had like sort of a Christopher Lloyd thing, like in
Yeah.
Taxi, kind of like off in the ozone somewhere, and
Right.
whatever it is. So now I understand it, and not only the shut up guy, but the facial expressions, kind of like the stare, that's off the wall,
Right.
something like that. All those little elements add up, and I think that next time out, Jerry, we had a mutual friend, and it was a birthday party, and I got a big laugh out of Jerry. What happened was my friend, as I say, I brought a birthday gift, and this is the absolute truth. There was a cologne called The Gambler, and I give it to him, and I say, Jim, this is The Gambler, as it says in the back, true story, for the man, for the man who has nothing but chance. And then Jerry exploded into laughter, and I know why. You know why? I didn't mean it this way, but the guy's name was Jim Brogan, and Jim was, you would say, a comedy coach.
Right.
And he had a good reputation for helping people get ready to go on the Tonight Show. So when Jerry was younger, they used to jog together, and Jerry's going through his stuff, and
Cool.
and I listened on the way. And also the same with Jay Leno, too. There's a little bit of a clique. It's Jay Leno, Jerry Seinfeld, Jim Brogan, a couple other guys, too, a couple of writers that I know well. So they get kind of a thing there together. Larry Miller, another guy,
Right.
who's the actor.
John Belushi ain't better than me. I'm better than him. JFK ain't better than me. I'm better than him. Old Abe Lincoln ain't better than me. I'm better than him. Because they're dead. Because they're dead. All those guys ain't better than me. I'm better than them.
I remember sort of recently, about a decade ago, Sirius picked up your CD on Better Than Them for their satellite comedy channel. How'd that change your life?
Well, let me tell you, it was a beautiful thing because royalties are like money from heaven.
Right.
It drops into your bank account. You don't know when it's going to come in, but then it starts to be a consistent thing, and it all adds up. It was really good. I had my record, and I broke it up into segments. There were some segments already there, but I broke them up into even more
Right.
shorter segments. So they had like a 3 or 5 minute clip. And it saved them a lot of trouble, so they could hear it the way it ought to go.
You've appeared with Rodney Dangerfield, with Eddie Murphy, and with Jay Leno. We talked about Leno before. I remember a great story. You and I were hanging out. We were in your car, and you and I were maybe bar hopping or something, going to see a show, and we started talking about Jay Leno, who I met once or twice back in the day, and who was a good friend of yours, and you gave me a 10-minute private rendition of Jay Leno.
It was like a lot of actors start in Broadway, and then they go to LA to try to make it big. Like Kathy Bates was big. She won a Tony on Broadway, and she's best known for the film The Return of Godzilla. You would come up with something like that.
Hey,
I know that wasn't a great impression, but I tried to do.
Hey, it's 20 years later anyway. I'm putting you on the spot.
Yeah.
Hey, let's talk about personal stuff, because I know you for a long time, and it's pretty special how we met. We met because Roy Buchanan, the legendary guitarist, was playing at Jonathan Swift's in Harvard Square. And Roy and I were pretty close in the last decade of his life. and you and him were good buddies too. And I remember we were standing in front of the stage, and you walked in wearing your beret and carrying your acoustic guitar and in the case, and all of a sudden you guys are talking and hugging and catching up, and all of a sudden Roy turns to me and goes, "Hey AJ, you know Chance?" And Roy, that's something really impressive, because Roy, as everybody who does or doesn't know, he was on the cover of Rolling Stone magazine in the late 60s. They labeled him the greatest unknown guitarist alive. And he was also in 1969, when Brian Jones died in the Rolling Stones, he was asked by the Stones, by Mick and Keith, to join the band, and he declined. And I remember once, him and I were talking alone in this tour bus. I said, "Man, how could did you really do that?" And he goes, "AJ," in that southern drawl of his, and that Arkansas drawl, goes, "AJ, I just didn't see it would further my career none." And I said, "None?" I said, "That's a real rural expression for any." And I just always remembered that, here's a man that turned down the Rolling Stones, and he introduced me to you. How do you know Roy?
I met Roy. This is incredible. I was going on a cross-country trip to meet my girlfriend. I hadn't seen her. It was several months. She was living in Los Angeles. Okay, so I drove. This is really amazing. So the first stop was Harvey Brooks, his house up near Woodstock.
Well, Harvey did graciously lend me the theme songs for Wachtelligence. The intro and the outro are both unreleased Harvey Brooks songs. Great guy.
Great guy. And so I crashed at his house. The funny thing, we recorded back in Boston a few years before.
What, in 74, 75 maybe?
And he crashed on my mother's couch. And then my mother quickly did. He was like just a great guy all the way.
And you told me that he loved your mother's cooking.
Yeah, he loved my mother's cooking. Now I end up in Greenwich Village, right? This is the God's truth, all right? And I'm walking by, and I see in a little bar, nobody's there but the bartender and Bob Dylan. I swear to God. So I sit next to Bob Dylan, and I said this to Harvey. I said, "If I see Bob Dylan, what do you want me to say?" And he said, "Just tell him I said hi." Okay? So I'm sitting there next to Bob Dylan, and he's reading the New York Times. And, and then at a certain point, and by the way, at this period in his recording career, he had just recorded Blood on the Tracks. It was an incredible album. So I'm sitting next to him, he's reading the Times, and then I go, "Bob," and he doesn't respond. And then I wait like a minute or so, "Hey, Bob." And he looked at me, and I think he's got this thing that when anybody, annoys him, he turns, and I'm not going to do this right, he turns with his face like his eyes are spinning like a kaleidoscope. And he's looking at you straight ahead. It was like something like, something weird like that. And then I said, "Harvey Brooks said hello." And then he goes back to the Times, and he nods his head, meaning I acknowledge that, but get the fuck out of my face.
Hey, so you told me that Roy stayed over your house too, Roy Buchanan, and you drove him to Logan Airport the next day.
That's right. Yep. I'll tell you what happened, and I really tell people this, but what the hell? So we did the gig, and we got jocked on cocaine. Can I say that? Yeah. Can I say it on the podcast? And I'm blasted. He's blasted. Okay, but he crashed on the couch in my house. Okay, and then I didn't sleep. And then he knows where I'm sleeping. He walks up the stairs, taps me on I got to go to Logan Airport, and I go, "No, okay, I go to Logan Airport." And he gave me some stuff. I go, "I'm not going to be able to go to." He gave me some stuff. Right, I get home, I'm out like a light. Right, and I don't know what he gave me. I'm sure it was something not good. And the truth is, I was sick for the next 3 weeks, day and night. I don't know what he gave me, but I was sick, you know. But, you know, reefer is you know, certainly much less of a buzz. You know, medical marijuana is the truth. It comes in a cigarette, a pill, an injection, and a suppository. Now I know the blowing smoke up my ass.
Hey, my favorite Roy Coke story is I brought my friend who was a dealer in the 80s to see him play Jonathan Swift's. And we go backstage, and my friend pulls out a gram and puts it on a glass on the table, and he dices out 3 little lines. And he does a line, and I was never a big Coke guy, but with Roy Buchanan, you know, do as the Romans do it in Rome. So I did a little line, and we handed it to Roy, and Roy did the 3/4 of a gram in one snort.
Oh, yeah.
And me and the guy who I brought just looked at each other with big eyes. 5 minutes later, Roy goes out on stage for the second set and blew the roof off of the club.
Oh, he's definitely one of the greats. Somebody said something, I read it the other day, and it's absolutely true. They never have him on the best guitarist list, you know, like Rolling Stone. They may have had him, you know, but other magazines, you know, I mean, they're just missing the boat with this guy because he's one of the greats.
You know, I said to him once after a show, I said, you know, you stand up there and you get so many noises and sounds on your guitar. You don't move an inch. You keep your eyes closed unless you're singing. And he looks me in the eye, and he points his index finger to his temple and goes, "You should hear what's going on in here."
Oh, man, it's great. Show business, totally off the wall. I mean, the first time I saw Elvis Presley on TV, the TV cameras only showed Elvis from the waist down. And I said, "Mom, how come you're doing that?" And she told me, "Elvis has no legs." Right? And it's confusing, show business. The first time I fell in love with Shirley Temple. I saw her on TV. I was 5 and she was 5. I was so happy. I met her at a mall when I was 6. She was 50. It totally, you know, that was bad news, you know. And I mentioned the Beatles. The truth, the Beatles performed at Boston Garden, 1963. I was 12 years old. I begged my father to buy me a ticket. And he looked at me and he looked at the ad and he said, "The Beatles, $6? That's way too much." And he got a ticket, $6 to see the Beatles, you know, but isn't that crazy? I mean, it's crazy how those things are.
Chance, it's great that you bring that up, because the way I end all of my Wachtelligence podcasts is I end it with this last question. What was your first concert? Were the Beatles your first concert? Or you couldn't go?
Yeah, first concert to see?
Yeah.
I would say this. It was probably the Young Rascals. I saw the Young Rascals. It was a concert. I mean, it's a funny story, too. What happened was this kid in high school, his name was Phil. He was a great guitar player in his own right. But he also was a guy full of confidence, brimming with confidence. And he convinced the teachers or whoever at the high school to put on this concert. So the concert is Young Rascals, and it was in a place called Ridge Arena in Braintree. The sound sucked. I mean, it was so bad, you know. So you have the Young Rascals, and then all of a sudden, also on the show was Bobby Hebb, the Chiffons were on the show, right? And so those were the, you know, so you had those acts. And what happened was, like I say, my friend convinced the high school to put this on, and they lost a fortune. I mean, they got screwed. It was bad news. And I could see it was an agent on the side was saying to himself, you know, they said, "Okay, we'll buy the Young Rascals." And they probably said, "Well, you know, if you have the Young Rascals, you're going to have Bobby Hebb and the Chiffons, you know, and who else there was." And they got, like I say, that was the concert I saw, and they lost a fortune. It was really hysterical. Yeah.
Chance, thank you so much for being on Wachtelligence. It was great to speak to you, and it was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot, and keep rocking, buddy.
I had a blast, AJ, and keep rumbling. Give Chance a piece, you know.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of Wachtelligence. You can connect with me on Facebook at Wachtelligence. Thanks to my producers, my son Harrison and David Schwartz, and Harvey Brooks for my theme song. Don't forget to subscribe.
I don't care what you think of me. Don't need no jailer to set me free. Don't want strangers filling up my cup. Don't need no advisor to show me down from up.